Today I'm going to walk you through some of my most popular design projects just to give you a better idea of how the mind of a designer thinks. Alright, first up here is Canvas. This is a project that I did a while ago. But this one is pretty simple. It was just a family with the title of the show. But I'm going to show you the breakdown of the different layers because you got to move stuff around to make it work right for the different layouts that you're working on. So this one's horizontal, so I had to make sure I can get all of the different characters in there without taking up too much space, especially when you get into having the title on one side with the different movies that are at the bottom and different things like that. You got to keep that in mind when you're designing these different layers and how the compositions go together. The first layer we started with was this bottom layer here, and the grandfather was sitting right here in his wheelchair, and at the time we didn't have access to generative fill, so I just used content aware. So once I removed him, I just moved this to the side, and what you want to do is make sure that you set the scene. So I know that it's going to be an outside, at least for this scene, it's going to be outside, and you're going to have trees and kind of that ambiance. So even though I'm removing him and moving the subjects forward, you still want to keep that same ambiance and feel. Going along with that content aware, I kind of just removed some more of this because I know that they're going to fill this space right here. But any spaces where the characters will see beyond them, I wanted to make sure that was out of the way. We also added just a little bit of haze here, which they also call atmosphere. And this is just going to allow for the subjects to pop out a little bit more and remove some of the background. So these are the subjects that I was working with. And all of these actually came from just one image. So these all came from this image right here, but I knew I'm going to have to separate her and then kind of move these two a little bit closer so that they all fit on this one little screen. As you see, this is its own layer right here. And then you got her on the other side with the easel. And this is what I was talking about with the atmosphere. You see this top layer right here? This is going to kind of drop into the background if you don't have that bit of atmosphere right there. So just adding that little bit is going to pop your subject out just that much. Then you add a little bit more atmosphere over here. That's just going to give you some room to add in this canvas logo, because without it, it kind of drowns into the background. And there you have it. So that'll be the final art piece that then has that extra layer of final touches on top of it. But as you see, it's very simple at times, but at the same time, you have to think outside the box when you want to put everything together and make it work for whatever you're trying to create it for. You've probably seen this one before on my channel. It's the Kim K piece. I did a whole suite of designs for My Next Guest, David Letterman, a few years back or so. So if we turn this end badge off, we're going to turn the title off. And if we scroll all the way down, this is the first art that we're working with, and all I'm doing is just making sure that I tell the story with just a few pieces of the design. So I know she's going to be on the stage, I know she's going to be talking to Dave. Now how do I make that make sense without adding a whole bunch of stuff to it? First things first, remove the mic. We know it's a talk show, don't even got to worry about that. And then I just want to highlight her hair, so I pretty much just selected the highlights on her hair, and then I added a new layer with curves, and it just kind of boosts her hair up just a little bit. After that, I'm just adding a little bit of haze and adjustments, just with a few different hues and colors. This is nothing fancy or anything like that, but it's starting to give her that bit of separation and also give her a bit of a mystical feel versus just like this flat, hard-edged photo. After that, we're going to add in these spotlights. So the spotlights are kind of interesting because these are literally just parts of the show. This is Dave talking to her, which I removed. And I moved him over because we know the spotlights are going to be there, or at least I know because I've seen it. So now how do I add those in and set that scene without making things a little too jumbled? Last but not least, a little haze. And it might seem subtle, but it starts here and ends there. So those different things are going to really polish out the image. So let's turn that title treatment back on, and we'll put the end badge back. And that's how you take these subtle designs and actually tell a story. Last one I want to touch on is this piece that I did for Crack, the documentary on Netflix. And this was one where I just wanted to kind of set the mood and kind of, sometimes I like to draw controversy with my art, and they push us to as well. They want to see how far we can push the limits without deterring people from actually watching. So on this bottom layer right here, this is pretty much just a protest, and we're going to just add in a few different images. So I'll just kind of turn those on real quick. This is just an image of a police officer arresting someone, and I flipped it horizontally, and that's kind of one of the sources for how I do this, is I find stock photographies. We don't have source imagery from the actual documentary or whatnot, and then I put those things together. So we're gonna add him in here. We're gonna use this image to create this. Then I'll add a bit of shadow. And this main image is just another stock photo. And now you have this kind of collage of hands that are being arrested, just to kind of give you that shock value for what this documentary might be about. Now we're adding this flag from Shutterstock, and this is just going to drape over the top of them just to kind of give a little bit more controversy for how I want this design to look. Now I group that art, add my final touches, and you see that that's kind of like a boost right here, but it also gives a little bit of a vignette and hones in on that first set of hands in the middle. And then from here, it's just going to be light adjustments. Now all these adjustments here are very subtle, but together they make it look more like a documentary. So something when you're creating for docs versus movies or different type of art, you want it to look like it. So by that I mean docs have a bit more gritty, muted feel to them, where movies are going to be more high end and they're going to look a bit more polished and punchy when it comes to the colors and stuff like that. So to accomplish this, I'm doing a whole bunch of adjustments in color, just kind of changes and hues to how the image is going to look. Give it a bit more haze, add some more mutedness to it, if that's even a word. Then I'll add the shadow right here because I know that's where we're going to put the title, and then a bit more atmosphere. Just give it a bit more haze. And if I were to group these and show you the difference. So this is the regular design. You add a little bit of boost to it. Next you add in that bit of mutedness because this is going to be a doc. I think that gives it a nice touch and makes it feel more like a documentary. Now you add in the title, add that M badge because that's recognizable. And there you have it, another piece created. So as you see, when you're creating, it's about the layers, but it's also about pulling back and either thinking what you want the subject matter to be, giving that shock value, or it gets down into how you want to tell the story without telling the whole story. You obviously don't want to tell the end of a movie or the main parts of a documentary, but you want to show that grit, that feel, or give that emotion that the art should give. So a lot of the things I learned from Netflix or Revolt or Puma or anybody that I've ever worked with, I kind of cherry pick and use those to my advantage, because every company I've ever worked with, there's something that they do great that makes me know that that's why they're who they are. You know, so when you're designing and doing your different type of artwork, make sure you cherry pick from others, including me and everyone else on the internet, and find your style. But also there's these key principles that you're going to see in a lot of different designs, whether it's corporate or it's branding, getting into more of that flashy stuff. You're going to see some things that are core principles. I kind of talked about a little bit of them here. I'll talk a lot more about this when my course drops, but I hope this gives you a little bit more insight on how the mind of a graphic designer thinks. That's all I got today. It's Jay.